Welcome to the Advancing Excellence podcast. Mindfulness has been a buzz in corporate circles for more than a decade. In fact, a recent study showcased that approximately 50% of U.S. employers have some sort of mindfulness training for their employees. But how does training and instruction result in mindfulness at work? In this podcast, AOE President Kimberly Kayler shares insight on the role of breath, the stories we tell ourselves, and the power of our brain related to corporate mindfulness. Let's begin the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, Advancing Excellence. My name is Kimberly Kayler. I'm the president of AOE, and I am coming to you today to talk about corporate mindfulness. One of my team members actually alerted me that one of the most popular podcasts we have is one that I did a while back on corporate mindfulness. So thought maybe I would jump in here and provide a little bit of an update or a little bit more context if this is a topic that interests you. So I'm right now looking at a great article in Harvard Business Review titled Research, When Mindfulness Does and Doesn't Help at Work. It's from 2022 by Lindsay Cameron and Andrew Haffenbrock. And it was a really great piece because it talked about misconceptions that we have related to corporate mindfulness, things that you can do. And I know that in past podcasts, I've given the tips related to mindfulness and how to be more intentional about the work you're doing, as well as finding a mindful attitude, a mindful presence, especially in times of stress, in times of anxiety, maybe in times of chaos in the work that you do. So the article highlights that more than half of American employers offer some sort of mindfulness training to their workers, which is really fascinating that we are at the point in our corporate existence, our organizational existence in the United States, in which wellness and global corporate wellness has recognized the value of meditation, of mindfulness. And that's a market that's valued at over 50 billion with a B. But the question is, are all these investments that are paying off? And so the author of this article actually details some studies related to the role of breath and cognitively thinking of things, or playing with what's called in yoga circles, and I'm a yoga teacher as well, of the face and replace type of mindset. So if you'll just bear with me, I'll explain a little bit and take a deep dive into the brain. So the way our brain works is for those of you that are actually doctors and hear me describe this, forgive me, because I'm going to do a terrible job of it. But for the layman's terms, the way our brain works is that information, those thought patterns that we access the most, create those ruts of the road. They create those, quick pathways. So, for example, if you are constantly ruminating about something negative, our brain has this direct pathway and can get there really fast. And a good example of that may be a coworker that you find really challenging. And when a challenging situation comes up, your brain immediately goes to how things are going to happen or play out with Joe or Sally. You may have even created the narrative of, boy, she's probably going to say this when she comes in the room, or he's going to say this when he gets my email. So we've created these negative pathways. Those positive pathways, those positive thoughts, if we're not accessing them enough, our brain doesn't create that superhighway to them. So they're harder to get to. They're slower to get to. We may never get to them. Our brain also does a good job at night of cleaning out those thoughts that we don't access. There's a protein, that C1q protein, that our brain will come in at night and actually clean out. So if you're not accessing those good thoughts, the loving kindness thoughts, the positive thoughts, they may actually get erased, believe it or not. They get cleaned out. So you have to create those new pathways to find them. So back to the research, back to the study that was highlighted in Harvard Business Review. It talked about the role of breath in all this. Now, I'm a yoga teacher, so I am, of course, going to tell you that breath is really, really instrumental in terms of how we regulate our body. We know with breath, we can lower our blood pressure. We can calm ourselves down. We can move ourselves from that cortisol rush and that flight or flight mode to the presence of having more of the rest and digest and engaging our parasympathetic nervous system. So breath is key. However, in a business setting, this study found that what is actually more powerful even than breath is when you have the ability and the practice of actually creating mindfulness in terms of your thoughts. So again, that face and replace, creating those very positive thoughts in terms of how you actually roll through things. So yes, a stressful situation, it very well may help. And I encourage you, if you're about to walk into a boardroom and you're stressed out or you know it's going to be a stressful situation, stop, breathe, compose yourself. But what is just as powerful, if not more powerful, especially in a business setting, is then strategically integrating mindfulness into how you do things as well. So what may that look like? So for example, they studied in a call center, agents that were invited to take a calming breath while on the phone was ringing immediately before answering. And then they also worked out whether or not it would actually work better in terms of creating some sort of mindfulness program for these call centers to actually give them some sort of cognitive boost, which is really, really key. So the key for us to take away today here is looking for opportunities to visualize positive intention, create those neural pathways within your brain to have that positive mindset. Yes, breathe. I'm not going to tell you to stop breathing, but if that's the only tool we have in our toolbox and we're not also creating the positive thoughts, we're not also trying to think things through, being mindful about what we're doing, it can be a little bit more detailed. The other thing to think about is just, okay, practical application, Kimberly. What does this look like? Well, encourage you to find ways throughout your day that you can create a time where you pause and you actually create that desired future. So it may be if you're actually in an office and you're not working in a remote environment, when you're walking down to the boardroom, can you stop and can you pause? Maybe look outside, find some sort of grounding with nature. Can you find some instances of gratitude before you walk into the room? That's really, really key to looking for a different way to create more of a mindful approach. For those of us that maybe are working remotely, same thing. What is your connection with nature? What is your actual daily approach to finding gratitude? I can share with you that, and I shared in an earlier podcast at the beginning of the year, I start my day off with a meditation, obviously gratitude as part of it. And I'm really deliberate that I do that before I open up my email. Now, that's nothing new. You've probably heard that before many, many, many times. I heard it for years before I tried it, and it did wonders for me. So invite you to take a moment, especially as we, continue to move into the hustle and bustle of our society, to find ways where you can practice mindfulness, even if it's creating a gratitude list, taking a moment before you go into a stressful meeting and pausing and maybe outlining what you are grateful for. Maybe you're grateful for the other team members that are going to be there. Maybe you're grateful that you have the skill set that when you're at this meeting, you know how to guide the discussion, or you have the pieces of information that they need to help make a good decision. So helping set your brain up in the right way is really, really key. So I will sign off again from a yoga teacher perspective, from an entrepreneur, from a business perspective. I'm telling you to do all the things. Keep breathing. That's really, really key. but also look for ways that we can ensure that mindfulness is part of it. Just doing your breath work isn't going to cut it based on the surveys and the studies that Harvard Business Review has done. So pop on over to the other podcasts that we've done related to mindfulness. If you have any questions about this at all, leave something in the comments. It's a topic that I really, really love, and I think it's one that it's really key and one we need to continue to explore in our current work environments. Signing off for now. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to visit our website, aoeteam.com, and look forward to being part of the dialogue in the future on our Advancing Excellence podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope this session provides value, and we hope you will join us for our next podcast.